Hi everyone, I hope you're all well. The following is a recording of a session that I did with Cyber Shujaa, where I guided their students on how to pass their upcoming AZ-104 examination. In it, I share everything that is required to crash that AZ-1 examination, including the resources that I used, which are the dumps, the practice sets, and everything in between. I have linked the presentation in the video description, and the video also contains timestamps to help you navigate through each section. Without any further ado, here's the presentation.
Yes, once again, hi everyone. I hope you're all well. As you know, my name is Emmanuel Muturia, and I will be guiding you through how to crash that AZ-104 examination so that you can graduate and have bragging rights or whatever it is that you want to achieve out of this. Anyway, today's session will help you pass your examinations by offering you everything that you need to know about it, the tips and tricks, and what you can expect in your examination. Now, just a disclaimer. These are by no means, first of all, these are by no means exhaustive tips. There are many other out there, but I'm just sharing them out of my experience so you can take them and customize them to your own situation. Yeah. And you can also feel free to look for other resources that can help you best prepare for them for the examination. Second, again, these are my own experiences, so please customize them to your learning patterns because some of these methods that I used were tailored to my own learning patterns, so feel free to customize them to your own preferences. And lastly, feel free to either wait until the end of the presentation, or you can also type your questions in the chat. I'm not sure if this one has the chats, but it is not a long one, so you can just wait until the end and then we can go through your questions. And by questions, please no technical questions, just questions around the examination. Yeah. With that out of the way, let us begin. Yeah, this is the outline of this presentation, and I intend to take minimal time so that we can mostly focus on the questions that you may have and everything surrounding the examination. And yeah, now let us begin with the first part, which is the introduction. So first of all, we need to ask ourselves, why are we here? Why do we have this session and what do we aim to achieve out of this? So this presentation intends to help you crash the AZ-104 examination. And I know that most of you have heard that it is difficult or even impossible to pass and any other negative connotations around it along those lines. But I'm here to tell you that you are more than capable of winning and crashing that examination. And I know that with enough preparation, then you'll crash it as you did the SC900. Anyway, this is not a motivational video, so let us proceed. Now, let us start with the examination itself, the AZ-104 examination. As you know, this is the second specialization examination that you are taking with the Microsoft ADC program. Or I'm not sure, maybe you're doing it as a self-sponsored program, but if you're in Cyber Shujaa, then this should be a second one, which means that you have already done the SC900. Now, these are the components of the AZ-104 examination. I thought it was best to highlight them so that you can at least understand what it is that AZ-104 contains, because I believe that if you know what it contains, then it will be easier for you to design a study program or just to effectively revise it so that you can also measure which areas you need to work on or which areas you need to just revise. The first one has to do with identities and governance. Manage Azure identities and governance. So what does this entail? This component will cover how to implement and manage Azure Active Directory, which is of course now known as Microsoft Entra ID. If you remember in SC900, this was the focal point. It also deals with assigning roles and permission, mostly using role-based access control. And of course, once you mention role-based access control, then you also need to mention policies. And these policies, they govern every other resource that you deal with. So the key skills that you're going to acquire here, how to implement Microsoft Entra ID now in practice, and how to manage the users and groups at the same time, while also applying the policies and understanding access management. So everything to do with access, users, identities, all that stuff. Not to get too deep into it. Second, storage. The focus of this area is the configuration and also the management of the Azure storage services. So this includes stuff like blob storage, file storage, and disk storage. I think if you are in the sessions that we did, I think it was Duncan who was taking us through the storage in Azure. And you remember we talked about blob storage, file storage, and disk storage. Also in this topic is where you deal with redundancy. The different kinds of redundancy are here because it is all about storage. Now, for the skills that you're going to get out of this and you need to learn is just how to create and configure storage accounts, how to manage blobs and files, and implementing the lifecycle management rules for data. So this includes the lifecycle management states like hot, cold, cool, archive, etc. Yeah. And also, by the way, when I talk about skills, I just mean the labs that you're going to do and what you really need to sharpen up on, which I will discuss later on. The third one, compute resources. Of course, anytime that you hear the word compute, you will think about virtual machines. And that is the case here because this component involves the deployment and ongoing management of compute services in Azure, which includes virtual machines and containers. And each time you have these two entities, then you are just going to mostly compare them, contrast them, and learn how to configure both of them. The key skills, again, once you're doing your labs, is to learn how to deploy and configure virtual machines, managing their life cycle, whether you are launching them, shutting them down, and also working with other compute resources like the containers. The fourth one, virtual networking. This section will concentrate on setting up and maintaining virtual networks, otherwise known as VNets, in Azure, and this includes subnets, gateways, and VPN connections. So this is entirely about networking, but in a virtual context. We are going to be dealing with virtual networks and how to configure different aspects of virtual networks, the subnets, gateways, VPN connections, etc. The key skills when you're doing your labs focus on creating and managing virtual networks, configuring IP addresses, private, public, you name it, and setting up connectivity between networks. So everything networking will be tackled here. And lastly, we have the Azure resources. So as you know, Azure is wide. It has quite a number of components to it, which are also known as resources. So this component involves using Azure Monitor and other tools to observe the performance and health of Azure resources and ensure they are backed up and maintained. So this is all about monitoring, analytics, all that kind of stuff. And the key skills that you will need here are utilizing Azure Monitor for diagnostics, setting up alerts, and implementing backup solutions for critical resources. So that is all about what AZ-104 contains. That is a high-level description of what you're going to expect as you are going through your revision. Yeah, so there's this section I set up, which is about risks. What I mean by risks is the stuff that may make the examination much more difficult than it needs to. I thought it was important to start with it because it is important to know what might derail you from passing that examination so that you can have an easier time, so that once you fix these loopholes, you can have an easier time. So there are three of them that I thought about. Let us start with the first one, the case studies and screenshots. So what I mean by that is, as I was doing the AZ-104 examination, I noticed that majority of the questions were case studies and screenshot-based questions. What I mean by screenshot-based questions is you'll be brought, I'm sure you have seen this in the dumps, a question will be brought and it will have a screenshot of some section in Azure, and then you might be asked what this component is or what it does or what you need to do. I mean, just anything surrounding that. Now, this means this goes to show how hands-on AZ-104 is compared to AC-900. I mean, in AC-900, you could get away with just studying the theoretical part of it and not really understanding too much detail. But in AZ-104, it is quite different. You need to be more hands-on. And of course, this means that you need to practice the labs until I can even say it becomes second nature to you. So please focus on the labs because majority of the questions will be the case studies and screenshots. Now, for the case studies, again, if you have gone through the dumps, then you might have seen them. It involves this lengthy description of a scenario, and then the following questions, not more than 7, thereabout, will be based on the case study. Now, the best way to go about it is just for the screenshot-based questions, just practice the labs until you get familiar with AZ-104, the Azure environment. And for the case studies, make sure you read them and understand as much as possible what it is talking about. And also practice, because once you practice these questions, more or less they'll be brought the same. So once you're familiar with them, you will have an easier time. But then again, do not just practice the questions without having any content, because now that will be cramming and you will just forget and get confused later on. Second, the curveballs. What I mean by curveballs is that since the majority of the questions were case studies and screenshots, the rest were the shorter questions, the multiple choice questions, obviously. And they were those that looked a little bit tricky, but were really not, because all they did was test your understanding. So you'll be brought a very short question, the regular questions, and it is those that have the tricky multiple choices. So you need to understand. Now, of course, the remedy for this is quite easy. You need to understand your stuff. You cannot second guess or go there without knowing your theory. So this means, for example, if it is a topic like storage and you're being tested on which redundancy is best for a given use case, then you need to understand them. You need to understand which redundancy, how they work, and everything surrounding them. So that no matter the kind of question that is brought, you will have an easier time. You'll know which answer it is, even without looking at the multiple choices. So this means that if you have no content, then the questions will be a little bit tricky. And in an examination like AZ-104, each mark is worth it. So yeah. Finally, the dumps. So I know that in your revision, dumps are quite central to that. But if you have gone around, some of these dumps are not credible. And this means that they may offer the wrong answers and this will just mislead you. So please be on the lookout. I have linked the resources that I was able to verify in this presentation, so I will share with you. And yeah, so before investing in a learning resource, please be sure that it is credible, because a lot of them, they have not been revised. And of course, I mean, there are people out there who want to look for money by any means necessary, so they might end up selling you some stuff that is not really verified. So yeah, these are some of the risks that you're likely to encounter as you're studying. But yeah, so enough of the bad news, more or less. Now let us go to the good news. So opportunities. Now that you understand what risks you're likely to face in your studies, what are the opportunities that you have before you that will level up your chances of passing this examination? There are 4 of them. The first one, again, the dumps. So yes, we know that there are dumps out there that are unverified, but we also have a lot of them that are quite verified and quite thorough. Please make these the main source of your practice, as they will expose you to different sets of questions, which are tested from various perspectives. Because the point of these examinations is to test your understanding, and the best way to have a better understanding is to not only, of course, understand your basics, your theory, but to also practice as much as possible, and preferably in different contexts, so that you can have an idea of how these questions may be presented to you. Again, make the dumps your main source of practice, as they will expose different sets of questions which are tested from various perspectives. Second, we have the labs. Again, like I mentioned, AZ-104 is more hands-on than AC-900. So please do the labs until you even run out of trials or credits, or even, if you are using the Skillable, I'm not sure what they were called, but there were a limited number of sessions that you are offered. Please do the labs until you run out of them, because once you understand them, the screenshot-based questions will not be a problem, and even the rest of the questions will not be a problem, because once you do this stuff, you will understand it better. So you will even realize that the more you do this stuff in practice, the more you'll understand even the theory, and even when sometimes, of course, you'll have a question that you may need a minute to rethink, you'll find that it will be easier, because now you can recall that you actually did this stuff. So you actually know what this and this does. Yeah. Now, of course, you also have AI. You can use AI in different ways. Once you study, you can also use AI to set up different questions in various levels of difficulty. You can ask it to explain a concept in as simple way as possible. A popular way that I have seen is you can ask it to explain to you as if you are like a 7-year-old or something. I mean, you can get as creative as possible. Of course, I needed to include AI because, well, it is a free. I mean, I do not even know how to describe it at this point. You can use it as your tutor, as your examiner. You can use it in different ways. So please use them wisely. But I also need to caution you on something. Do not rely on it entirely for your answers. If you are revising a question and then you get an answer, be sure to look up the official documentation in Microsoft, because sometimes, I mean, this is AI, sometimes it gets some stuff wrong. So please verify. Always verify. So you can use it as a supplement. Then finally, we have the notes. I mean, while this may not be as helpful as the dumps and the labs, they will still help you better handle the curveballs, as you'll understand the concepts in depth and therefore not be easily confused by these multiple choices or these questions. The notes are there not to act as your main source of practice. I know that sounds counterintuitive. I will explain. Yes, go through the notes, make sure you understand each concept, but do not make it your main source of revision. Do not be there just skimming the notes, expecting that you will pass. The notes are there for reference and to just help you understand what each stuff does. How you use notes, I will explain this in depth later on, but how you use the notes is you study them, you understand them, and use them. Let us say you have revised questions and you have realized that there's a topic that you need to work on. You are going to refer to the notes, make sure you understand if you have any skill gaps, and then continue practicing with questions and the labs. So and also, I mean, the notes are quite vast, so it may not also be practical to just revise them from point A to Z, right? So please keep them there, but do not make them your priority. If anything, I would say that I arranged this in priority. So make the dumps your main priority. Of course, couple that with the labs, use AI. It is a free tool. And then, of course, consult your notes. Now, what resources can you use for this, for your studies? Here they are. Now, of course, I will be sharing this with you after this, but I wanted to highlight something, given that I've listed these resources. These are the ones that I used. Now, the first resource here is the AZ-104 Studycram by a guy named John Saville. I had actually shared this before, but I just needed to include them here so that I can explain to you. So, assuming that you do not know much about AZ-104, this is the best. It is a YouTube video. It is about 4 hours in length. This is useful in helping you now piece every topic together to understand how everything works together. So it is like a summary of the whole course, so that now once you understand it, you can now use the rest of these resources. Now, make sure you dedicate at least 2 hours per day to follow this routine. And again, you need not follow it in this order, but I just thought I should show you why I followed it in this order. We start with the AZ-104 practice set. So this is a website. You will find 4 sets. So I have linked up the first one. Once you're done, the next one, it will be highlighted at the bottom, so you can go to it after the first one. So before I even going into it, make sure you, from the AZ-104 practice sets all the way down there to the AZ-104 practice assessment, make sure you dedicate, first of all, at least 2 hours per day. That is how long it will likely take you to complete them. And make sure you start from the practice sets and complete it with the AZ-104 practice assessment. The reason I say that is because the practice set and the practice assessment, they are a little bit lighter, and it is best to start with them to warm up, right? Right. Now, for the dumps are the same ones that were shared in the WhatsApp group. These are quite technical and they're quite engaging. So that is why I included them after the practice set, so that at least you have warmed up and then you can go in depth. The good thing is that they are arranged by topic, so you can have a deep dive into these topics, and then you can realize which one you need to put more effort on and which one you just need to revise. Again, I repeat, they are quite engaging, so please make use of them. And of course, once you get some questions wrong, consult your notes, understand what you might have missed, and then do it again. So in short, what I'm trying to say is that every day leading up to examination, start with I'm assuming by this time you have already watched this study cram, so you have an idea of what AZ-104 is. So let me paint a scenario. So assuming it is in the morning and you want to now start revising, you will start with the practice sets, do 4 of them. They are easy questions compared to these other ones. Do them, complete them, look at which questions you might have missed, read the notes, understand, and then now you move to the dumps. Do each dump again, look at which questions you might have missed, understand what you might have not gathered properly. And then once you're done with all 7 dumps, you go and complete with the Microsoft practice assessment. So the dumps and the practice sets, they're the same questions. Each time you go there, you'll find the same questions. But for the practice assessment, I noticed that it varies every 3 times. What I mean by that is you can do it today once, tomorrow it will be a different kind, not that different. Some questions will have changed, most of them will stay the same. And then on the 3rd day, they'll also have changed again. But after that, it will be a repetition from day 1. So it will, after every 3 times, you'll repeat it every 3 times. Yeah. So yeah, I know this looks like a lot, but it is a trade-off of what you need to invest in so that you can have more confidence in your examination. So yeah, it looks like a lot, but I guarantee you that once you follow this, and of course consult your notes, AI and everything, you'll be so confident that you'll even be impatient to sit for that examination. Yeah. So yeah, those are the resources that you will need to use. So it will just be a repetition each and every day until you go sit for that examination. Yeah. So yeah, that is the end of the presentation. So now this is the time for your questions. If you have any, that is. Yeah, coffee. I'm not sure if your microphone is speaking. I can see you have unmuted, but you're not audible. Maybe someone else can confirm if it is just me.
Hello.
I am much better. Hello.
So I was asking, how did you go about studying for the case studies?
Yeah, thank you for that. So for the case studies, of course, based on my explanation on what they entail, you need to understand that they are long. It is a long description, meaning that you need to understand your fundamentals. So let us say I have a case study question on Azure storage, since it is the one that I mentioned. I need to first of all understand storage. So that is included the notes. You need to understand your notes. You need to understand what kind of storage services are there. Just understand your notes, because if you do not understand, you'll just get confused. Then once you make sure you've understood the notes and the theory part of it, now you can just go and practice. The dumps that I've included have a number of the case studies, and most of them, they're the ones which are brought in the examination. So understand the notes, the theory, do as many questions as possible to understand what kind of case studies are there, rinse and repeat. But also as a bonus, make sure to read the case studies as slowly as possible so that you do not miss a detail. Because once you miss a detail, it will be difficult to answer the questions. You might miss a detail and then you get a question wrong. But I know the case studies can seem daunting, but they are not. The only daunting part is you might find that it is too long for you to maybe understand or remember, but with enough practice, you will get used to them. So the questions will just test your understanding. That is what you'll end up realizing even as you're revising them. The question will just simply test how much do you know this topic, and they are easier than you might expect. So yeah, that is how I went about studying for the case studies, and I hope that helps. Let me know if it does.
Thank you. I also
You're
wanted to
welcome.
know if you'll be sharing those links with us.
Yeah, I'll be sharing the whole presentation. No worries. Even the
Okay.
recording will be available.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question? All right. If there are no more questions, then I believe that is the end of my presentation and the session at large. I will be sharing this presentation, and the recording will also be made available to you. So yeah, maybe just one more. Yeah, believe that is it. If you want to get in touch, check out my website for any more cybersecurity content and stuff. Then that is my website. Feel free to get in touch, and I will be glad to help sort you out. Yeah. So with all that said and done, I wish you guys and girls, if there are any, all the best, and see you in graduation. Thank you.
Manuel.
Yes.
I had one last question. So what advice would you give someone who's taking the exam again?
Oh, yes. Thank you for that. I almost forgot some stuff. So first of all, away from the examination, I'm sure that you have seen some of us rant in the WhatsApp group, but please just go and do it physically. I know I do not care if you have a MacBook, if you have the latest Windows, go and do it physically, because there are so many disruptions that can happen that it will just end up messing you up for no reason. So please go and do it in a physical center. Now, if once you schedule examination, please keep time. Most of them, they are lenient when it comes to time, but just for your own sake, just keep time so that you can also have an easier time. So that is number one. Number two, do not overthink. I know some people will spread rumors about it being difficult or whatever. No, it is not as difficult if you prepare for it accordingly. Do not overthink. And as long as you you follow the advice that I shared, then I believe you'll find it much easier than you expect it. And then thirdly, be consistent. Make sure you revise every single day leading up to the examination, so that at least, because something that you'll notice once you do this, once you're consistent with the revision, is that you'll get to a certain point where you actually now even anticipate questions, and you'll know you have gotten there once you're doing the Microsoft practice assessment, and you do not even need to read the question before you know the answer. You'll just be clicking the answer without even reading the question. Of course, I do not advise that in the actual examination, but once you do it every day, now it will become second nature. You'll understand these concepts much more easily, and you'll just cruise through the examination. And then, yeah, I believe that is pretty much it. Do not overthink, be consistent, and make sure you have your preparations in order, which includes the examination center that you will be taking your exam in. And yeah, I mean, do not overthink it. It is just an examination that you'll do and forget about it. So yeah, that is it from me when it comes to general advice in AZ-104. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, no worries. You're welcome.
Also, thank you for taking the time to have this session with us. I think it's probably very important. Because I'm one person who personally I don't like to. So I didn't get something like last time. How can I bounce back? So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Kofi, and every one of you. So yeah, again, I'll just insist, do not overthink it. Just prepare every single day. And later on, you're just going to realize that all this stuff, they're interconnected, they're simple to understand. And I mean, again, it is just an examination. It is not like you're going to be punished or beaten up if so do not put that much pressure on you. And yeah, so with all that said, I believe we have come to the end of the session. Yeah, so that is it from me. Thank you and bye-bye.
Now that you understand how to crash the AZ-104 examination, check out this playlist to learn how to level up your Linux skills, or this video to learn how to hack ethically, obviously. Anyway, that was it for me today, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you and bye-bye.